Yeah.
My name is Julius Caesar. I am a barber of 17 plus years.
I'm Sofie Pok. For the last 10 years, I've been able to travel the world and share my experiences.
I'm Miguel, also known as the Nomad Barber, a traveling barber, filmmaker and photographer from Liverpool in the UK.
What makes Statement Grooming Goods a very unique project is simply one word: it's disruptive.
When you have three different people with three different mindsets and styles and you put us together in a room and be able to create something from scratch in terms of smells, how it looks, how it feels.
It felt like something new that we could really do for our industry.
We were able to really join this when it was just simply an idea. It was so crazy walking into that room, and it was just like a laboratory, right? There was like all these magazines and little balls of fragrances and mood board things to create on. It was like super overwhelming.
We really put everything into this.
All of us have worked really hard in testing out so many different materials, performance, scents.
What's the packaging? Is there attention to detail?
And we were so particular about how we wanted to look, how we want the labels to sit. We don't want to crease here, we don't want to crease there. All these little challenges is what's kind of made the product range what it is now.
All of us are still working barbers. It's very tried and true.
Because we've all put our minds together and created different types of products, it's not your typical barber range.
We wanted to make sure that everything was at the best quality possible.
It's barber and it's editorial and it's everything in between.
So it's basically for everyone, and that's what we try to represent within the brand campaigns as well, using different people with different hair, different ethnicities, different looks, you know, even different genders. So I think that's what makes our product line special.
To make a statement, that's like almost putting a stamp on something. It's your conviction, it's your commitment, it's what you stand behind.
If I had to describe Statement in 3 words, it would be creative, custom, and strong.
And that's my statement.
That's my statement.
That's my statement.
What's going on, guys? Thank you guys for tuning in. Welcome to our first statement class. This is my first one, actually. Julius did one not too long ago. I hope you guys enjoyed his. Thank you for being here. I have a really cool class for you guys here today. I got my model here, Taniki, who's going to be getting a faux hawk. You guys can see this little wraparound. We just did a little prep on this side over here. And then I'm gonna go kind of step by step into this side once we get into it. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is kind of the collection and everything that we have, so you guys can have an idea of what it is. And at any time in this video, please make sure to ask questions, get engaged. Heather, right behind the camera, will be helping with all the questions. So if you guys have anything you guys want to know, please make sure to type that all in, and we will try our best to get to all of those questions. If you guys can hear me okay, please leave a thumbs up so we all know that everything is ready to go. We just want to make sure the audio and everything is great and good for you guys. So one of the really cool things that I first really love about Statement is that it's completely genderless, and we wanted to make sure that it's very neutral for all walks of clients that we get into the shop. I'm trying to take you guys through the things that we have here. So prior to what you're seeing here, we cleanse the hair really well. We use the shampoo and conditioner. The conditioner is also going to help and act as a cutting agent so that when you're cutting through the hair, it's not super dry. Hold on 1 second. There you go.
Perfect.
Sorry about that, guys.
Thanks,
Just wanna make sure
Sofie.
you guys get everything that you need. Try that on number 2. Let's do that. All right, so with bleached hair, one of my favorite things of doing is adding beard oil to the hair. On myself as well, I like to use it as a way to really kind of help smooth out the hair. So we're gonna use a couple drops of beard oil. And if you guys have been paying attention and following to our Instagram statement grooming, you guys may have seen that we had won an award for this, so it's pretty special to us. I'm gonna use probably just about 3 drops, just to kind of smooth it out. 1, 2, 3. You don't really need to use a lot. Even for my hair, I probably use about 3 or 4 drops as well. Now I'm gonna work this from the mids to ends, so you don't have to put it all the way down to the base. I like to use it mostly for the surface. Alright, so now I'm gonna show you guys the side. So this is the side that we're gonna be working on. So you guys can see. Now, especially because having colored hair is super popular these days, making sure that you have an aftercare product that you are using after a shower is really important, and it can make the biggest difference. Like say, for example, if she wanted to just have an easy day and this was just something just to help smooth out all the hair, you can typically stop here and not have to add any more product. Another cool thing about Statement is that you can cocktail all the products together. They work really well. In the past, I remember having struggles with using certain products because they would clash with another type of ingredient, which causes one to not work as well, in going through that kind of struggle. So we started with shampoo and conditioner. We're gonna kind of build up from here. Beard oil to help maintain. We're gonna cut through the sides first before I actually go into the other parts. But what we will be using today is the spray powder, one of my favorite pieces from my collection. This is gonna be used as a base for a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a natural lift right here in the front, and then we will finish it off with maybe, I'll show you guys a little bit more of the wax powder and also finishing up with the fiber pomade. So let's go ahead and clean up this side really quick. And we're gonna start off with, whenever it comes to hair cutting, I always like to start off with my base length first. I wanna make sure I already create the shape of where I want it to end. That's a really important part, because that way I can build up to that point and not have to go and chase my lines higher and higher. So I'm going to start and start with that base area here. So what I'm gonna grab is probably a 1.5 guard. And I always tend to like using maybe a length higher than what I need, because the thing is that I can always take off more versus taking off too much and not being able to put that back on. So we're gonna grab a 1.5. And I'm pretty much gonna follow the shape. You know, this is always a really good guide as you are cutting clients. You kind of already see the previous guidelines that they were already using. So that's what I'll be following here. And I can kind of already feel how high I need to go, just depending on where you hear the sound hit the clipper. Now, usually I would probably be standing in front of it. That's gonna be your best position when you're cutting hair. But for the sake, before you guys is viewing, I'm gonna be standing here to the side. And you kind of already see this kind of like C-scoop motion right here. You wanna make sure, you wanna keep to that shape, especially with faux hawks. In particular, this one right here, there's a slight disconnect, and that's what's really fun about a lot of hair cutting and different types of styles, that you can blend a couple different ideas together to create custom looks for each person. So this one's gonna be really cool because you have some length here, you have it a little bit shorter, and then you kind of have this tail kind of growing out the bottom. So I wanna make sure I don't cut this off, and I wanna keep forming a shape so that we can really accent the faux hawk shape. I love using clipper over comb to connect and create my shapes from going from my short length to my longer length. So right here is where I'm making the ledge so that I know exactly where to stop once I start from the bottom going in. Now you might be wondering why I'm using a guard on this clipper. And that is because what I started with was already a 1.5. So to leave that 1.5 on and apply a comb, it kind of works as like your next half guard into the next step. So it kind of helps blend it a lot easier. And of course, there's always multiple ways of doing everything. So you are totally welcome to try it and see if it helps you. So as I'm doing that, it helps me really blend in because when I take this off, it has a hard time connecting sometimes because you're cutting so short without that safety guard on there. So having that really helps everything connect really well from the starting point. And I just work my way through all the way across.
Sophie, we have a couple questions coming in here. First of all, I'd like to address and say welcome to everybody. And also, yes, this will be available to watch later at our Statement Grooming YouTube channel. We do have a question from Darlene. She would like to know, do you have a preferred comb you use when you're using your clippers?
I do actually, and it's the one that I'm using here. This is a carbon comb. What I really, really love about this, I actually found it at a random hair show once. And I haven't been able to put it down ever since, and so I've been looking up the brand. But what you benefit from a carbon comb is that if you are using it for clipper work, which you will be having to use it in the back of the head, if it's not a carbon material where it's super thick and not as flimsy, you don't get that bend into the back of the head. Everything stays pretty stiff, so for me, this gives me a lot of consistency as I use it. There's not a lot of bend to the hair, which can create different levels and change in this cut. So this helps me that. So the brand of this in particular is BW number 299. And the best place to look that up is probably on Amazon. I feel like they always have a bunch of those. So that is my favorite clipper comb. So what I do a lot also when I'm working in this area is that I'm constantly combing because you always want to check out to see how the hair is sitting. So I comb a lot so I can see, and also being able to look at the hair from different angles because depending on how the light hits, you're going to see a different blend. So you always want to make sure when it comes to any sort of tight hair fading or anything like that, you want to be able to see exactly what you're doing from every side. And then also as you're working into the hair, you're going to know different hair densities, different hair patterns that are going in different directions. You're not going to be able to see that completely straight on all the time. So I constantly am shifting between a 45 degree from the front and a 45 degree from the back so I can see how those transitions look. Next. so sometimes I like to do this and it just depends and it varies by the client, by the type of haircut. But outlining the edges also really helps when you are doing any kind of tapers or skin fades, is having that guideline already in so you know what kind of direction to follow. So previously back here, there's like a V cut in the back, so we're just gonna follow that. And when I'm doing any trimmer work, it's very important to have a light hand because this is a very sensitive spot for most people. People have different sensitivity depending on which part of the haircut that you're doing. So you always want to make sure it's a really nice and soft kind of touch to the scalp. Once you have that guideline in, you can kind of see all of that. And then you can just cut this part out. And typically for this part, whether it's sideburns or neck or right around the ears, I like to go upwards with my trimmers because in this way, we're gonna make sure that we're not applying so much pressure here that it can get red and very irritated. So you wanna just make sure that you're light with your pressure. And you wanna work up to the line that you already created. So once I have all that, there's still a bit more stubble, and this is kind of where I like to use a foil shaver. And a foil shaver is this exactly. So if you look at this right here, this is a double, hold on, get it frame. This is a double foil shaver, and what this does is that pretty much it helps grind down the hair all the way down to the skin, so it's completely flush. Like right now I can feel there's a bit of stubble, but once I apply this is going to really knock out that stubble, and you'll feel a little bit more flush with the skin. And what this does too is this is going to make the haircut last a little longer because you are working it all the way down. Very similar to a straight razor, but you get to go against the grain without having to prep the skin and go through all that route. Because most of the time when you do have the time to do all of that, it's mainly for facials, but when you're trying to go through a lot of haircuts, to put and prep on the head, to shave this against the grain can be a very long process. So having something like a foil shaver allows you to get to that without having that extra irritation or the prep time to do all of that. And now I'm following the lines, pretty much following the trim line that I created. And now it's completely dry with no irritation at all.
Sophie, what's the name of that tool again?
This is called the Vivid Pro FX002. And the 02 means that it's got the double foil. So there's going to be two kinds. One is a double foil and one is a single foil. So it's just one and it's smaller. The difference is that you can kind of cover more ground with this one because it is bigger and heavier. So if you're doing bald fade, this is fantastic to use all of that for. And then the single foil ones, I love using for detailing. So if for guys, when they have a beard on the side of here, you have such a tight space to work with in between the ear and the beard. So those single foils would work really great in those areas. And also underneath the chin when you are working in any kind of like beards. And they come in like a variety of different colors. So that's also really cool. All right, so now we're gonna work into the hair portion now. So first things first is I'm gonna build my guideline and then I'm gonna work from there. And if I wasn't doing a skin fade, I wouldn't probably have to start from the bottom up because it's gonna be a lot easier to fade from the top down if you're not doing any skin. So if this was a 3-2-1, you probably would have an okay time going from a 3 to a 2 to a 1. Everything will blend in pretty nicely. But because we're gonna go in and do a skin fade, that's gonna be the hardest part to blend backwards. So I always like to start from the hardest part first and then work my way up. And because we already set this base area, we already know that we want everything here to blend up to here because that's what we started with. Now I have a visual stopping point that's telling me where to stop my haircut, and now I can just build up to it. So it helps me a lot because when I first started cutting hair, I think I didn't do it that way. I just started from the bottom. So what happens is you start with that low skin line, decline on with the low, medium, but then it ends up going high because we didn't already know where that ending point was going to be. That's probably one of the hardest parts is figuring out where your start and your finish line is going to be at. So we have the finish line. Now we start at the bottom. So pretty low fade that we're going to be doing here. Just enough to kind of move over the natural line, wherever that is, that's what we're going to do as our first guideline.
Sofie, we've got a question about the statement products. What are the ones you use most on clients?
For me personally, a lot of my clients are very more on the natural, messy, effortless looking side. They don't want it to look like there's a lot of product on there. So my main products that most of my clients love is the spray powder, the wax powder, the matte paste, and actually the fiber pomade as well. Because if you use the fiber pomade in a small dose, you can get a lot of light separation. But then if you do a heavy application, that's when you can do like kind of like a really clean Gatsby style type of like heavier product look without the product actually drying and feeling like a helmet. So that's going to be probably my top ones. And then I know this is a lot longer than the question, but also grooming spray is also a really good base for most haircuts because it's a good primer to kind of help set the haircut before you actually go into the styling. And you can't forget the finishing hairspray by Julius Caesar. That's one I use a lot to just kind of overall finish cut and style no matter what. Just to help them on their way out, especially if the wind hits it, you kind of have like a nice little finishing kind of hold without it feeling super sticky and very rough. It's kind of a light finishing spray. All right, so we're wrapping around to the cleanser here. Now, when you are doing and creating your guides for these, always keep in mind what kind of haircut style you're doing. Whether that be low, medium, or high, you kind of have to remember which one. So let me give you guys a little guide really quick. I always measure the type of blend that I'm going to do depending on the size of the natural arch that they have here. If I'm doing anything low fade, low taper, anything like that, you have a strong arch in this area here. Right? So as you move into the mids, you're going to still have this, but it's going to be a little lighter. And then you still have this little arch, but it's a little bit more faint. And then last but not least is going to be your high, which means high tapers and high fades. Usually they don't want this arch anymore. So you would blend pretty much past that point, and you would have just that without the shape of the sideburn right here. So that's kind of the guide. So if you already pay attention to what they're asking for, if they want a low, mid, or high, that's going to really help you build this like blueprint of going into the process and knowing exactly where you want all your lines to be. So as you guys can see here, this is going to be more of your low side of fading. Okay, so now we're going to move into the next area. This is going to be my flipper, no guard area. Real quickly, let me see if you guys can see this. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so I just want to show you guys these two things real quick. But these blades are completely different. So I have a different blade on each. The one right here is going to be your taper blade, and the one right here in the yellow is going to be your fade blade. Now this is a really important part of barbering because depending on what blade you use can make the process easier or harder. But regardless, if you use it enough, you will learn how to use it well. But the taper blade here, if you see it from the side, this is going to be a little more beveled than this one. This one's a lot flatter, so you're going to get a more precise cut. This is typically a lot of like more advanced barbers probably prefer this blade because it cuts exactly how you move it, versus this one, you have a little bit of an adjustment. You get that nice extra bevel, which also helps the softness of your fade and your taper. So when you are working, it's almost like this is assisting you. And for as long as I've done this, I have been using fade blades for a while, and probably in the last year, I transitioned back into using taper blades. I think I like that added softness, and the more you use it, you kind of know how much more to dive into certain areas so that you can still get the precise feeling that you typically would get from fade blade, but also now knowing more control on how to use these taper blades to get the same effect that you would get with the fade blade, but just having that extra softness as you're working through the process. It's really nice. And then also having clippers that have these taper adjustments on the side. If you guys can see this, basically there's 5 notches. This makes everything a whole lot easier to work with because you know exactly where you are in the haircut. The free floating levers, those are cool. But if you want an easy system, for me, it's the most efficient way, the easiest way possible. And that's kind of what I like to help people figure out, is that you have these locking beacons to help guide you no matter what. So what that does for me is that when I am working and doing haircuts, it's less thoughts on, oh shoot, like where am I at in the haircut, and more of me having more time to connect with my clients and talk to them versus wondering where I'm at in the haircut. And this system really helps me have that nice balance of like the whole experience. Okay, so from here, we're gonna go into the clipper work. So everything, like I said before, I always cut in a safety kind of way to make sure that I can always take more off versus taking too much off and not being able to put it back. So what I'm gonna do next is, instead of starting with my clothes, right, because we're already at the trimmer, so the next part with the trimmer would be to have a closed clipper, which means lever all the way down, cutting the most off, right? Lever all the way open, meaning the longest length possible. Lever closed, cutting the most possible, right? You're gonna open that all the way up. And I'm gonna follow this exact same guideline. And you guys might be able to see this, but I'm cutting basically on the corner of my clipper using just about, I'd say like the right 4 or 5 little teeth there. Just because I just want to make sure I fine tune that shape. Again, from the front side. And now you guys can faintly see. So this is how you'll really be able to see this. All of this is the same size, but you guys can see that this line here is heavier than this part here. And that's because of the different densities of hair. So here it looks a lot more blended, and that's kind of the hardest part of bob barbering, is that you're trying to really blend different shades of color of hair and different densities depending on thickness in different areas, and trying to blend that all together. So what you see here now, I created a guideline. You guys can see that, right? So that is basically telling me, don't go past that point. Now the goal is to blend everything in between before I move on. And so this technique, basically, it's just to help you stay in consistent guide zones to help you not go too far up. And then once you get the patterns and you understand this process more, you can start bouncing around and skipping different guards. But I'm gonna show you guys the long way so that it makes sense. And then as you learn it and be able to create your own rhythm with it, you can start bouncing around once you get more comfortable. So back in, because we all started open, right? Now I'm going to casually close this one at a time, each notch. So it's kind of like a typewriter motion. Once I go one round, it follows the same pattern, but you're working lower than your last part. So I'm starting at the top of that and then working down into that trimmer base area. So I'll start right here so you guys can really see this. Notch one. That was notch one, this is notch two now. I'm just gonna stay on this side so you guys can see. Notch two. Okay, notch three. And I'm also listening to the hair getting cut. That's also kind of a guide for me to know, okay, don't go past that. Okay, I'm on my notch four now. And then all the way closed. And now you can see that little whole area is a lot more blended. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the same thing with the back side. I try my best to always dust off as much as I can. It's a very important part because when you are working with super small hairs, I have gotten plenty of hair splinters to know that it's not comfortable for anybody. So I'm always constantly making sure that I brush everybody. Okay, so now we're gonna do the same exact thing. Back side. Start from longer and then work my way down. So again, notch number two. 3. And it's a pretty repetitive system once you get the flow of it. And then also with barbing, everything kind of evolves all the time. So you always find new techniques, and there's a bunch of different ones. And they're dependent on sometimes what kind of hairstyle you're going for. So there's a couple different variations that you can kind of play around with. So again, you guys kind of see me bouncing around from different angles because I'm trying to just get a double look and be able to kind of cross-check visually from different sides. Okay, so now we can go from here. Now, same exact thing, clipper here. My next guard is going to be the half guard here. Same exact steps. Create my new guide zone, and then blend back down again. So you're just gonna see that repeat step. My pressure is very light. And remember, because we are doing more of a lower style fade, you wanna make sure you don't take big chunk guidelines. Everything is very, very tight and close to the bottom as much as possible.
It's looking really good, Sophie. We got some questions coming in. One of them, okay, here we go. What is the difference between the Babyliss Pro FX Clipper and the X2? And then also we've got some statement product questions, so I'll ask those in just a second.
Okay, so first one is great question. Both of them have very amazing, what's the word I'm looking for? Specs, I guess. And the X2 is different because you have locking detents that sit on top. So this is going to be your more traditional style of clipper because you have this side notch, the side handle here. This is going to be your lever adjustment. So on the X2, your lever adjustment is in the middle and it actually clicks harder into place. So to adjust to using the X2, I would say takes a little longer because you gotta get used to the hard locks. This has got a way softer lock, and you have an extra lock. The X2 has about 4 locking detents, this has 5. So you got that little in between that kind of helps really nicely. But what I really love about the X2 is I would find it to be pretty comparable to a metal detachable blade. A lot of people prefer metal detachable blades because of the saying that, you know, it takes a couple less runs to get a nice clean cut. That is true to the older days of the older models of tools, but because of everything that is more advanced and has evolved, a lot of tools, even using plastic guards, have gotten a lot stronger and a lot more precise if you are doing clipper over comb with the guards on. With the X2, what you're getting is that really clean cut in one shot because they have serrated blades. So these ones are not serrated, so it's only on one side. So what you're getting from the X2, and the advantage of that is that it's almost picking up the hair and cutting at the same time, so it feels like a metal detachable blade slicing through, with the added bonus that the X2 has an actual lever adjustment, which a lot of the metal detachable clippers don't have a lever adjustment for their tools. So that's probably the main differences. And then also, what else? That would be the main thing, is the blade style. The blade style is really amazing. So what I usually do at home is with the X2, I use those more for my baselines, and everybody's gonna have a different use and purpose for each tool. So it's gonna be different for everybody, but that's what I would typically use it for. I use it to kind of speed cut through everything that I need, and then I use something light, which was the taper blade that I was talking about earlier, clipper like this, to do my in-between blending parts. And what was the second question?
Thank you so much. The second question, sorry, Jill, I didn't ask this earlier. I was too engaged with her, Sophie's cutting. What is your go-to cocktail in the statement line?
That is a great question. My go-to, okay, so because most of my clients are, again, towards that light, messy, effortless kind of look, the base that I always use, depending on hair texture, of course, the beard oil is also a new base that I just added, especially for colored hair. But spray powder is honestly a heavy go-to for me, because not only can you use it on super short hair, but you can also use it on longer hair. And I like that versatility of that, and also being able to control how much grit you want. So think about it this way: when you are, for yourself, even when you're at home and you just recently washed your hair and then you're applying product in it, and it almost feels like your hair is too clean sometimes to add whatever product that you're using. So the spray powder, especially for like the super lighter, messier looks, what they look for is they're looking for that 2-day-old kind of gritty feel. Like, I think we all know that our hair feels a lot better usually after a day or two of just being a little more lived in. So with the spray powder, it's almost like you get to add all of that into that pump, because depending on how many pumps you do, it gets grittier. So it kind of has that same effect. So I use that a lot as a base. And then depending on if they want still more of that dryness, then I use the spray powder and I leave it at that. Some people are just okay with that. But if they wanted a more of a finish, what I'll be doing here, we're going to be doing a spray powder base with a fiber pomade clean finish. So that'll be the cocktail that we'll be using today.
So just to circle back, Darlene just asked, what products did you prep the hair with this with? Was the grooming spray? So the shampoo, conditioner?
Shampoo, conditioner, grooming spray, and beard oil so far.
Perfect.
That's what we've mixed so far. That's a lot of products, but I just wanted to show you guys how awesome it is to mix all those things together. And we'll probably finish off with the finishing spray. Okay, so again, now we set the base, but now I'm really trying to fine tune this. So I'm using, again, a corner, even less than before, is literally like 2 teeth on the side, just to fine tune this part. And that's just because it changes a little bit of the density here, so I just want to make sure I get that as clean as possible. Moving along from there, let's go into our one guard here. Again, all the way open, right? All the way open being the longest first. Keep following that same exact guideline. Now I'm stretching to about, I'd say about 4 to 5 teeth now, so a little more than the last little detailing that I was doing. I'm listening for where the hair is cutting, because that's going to be also a sound guide of where I need to stop. Again, with this back side. Now back to my 1.5, which is where we started, right? So now we're just connecting. I always start longer and then work my way down. And again, when I'm going back into like retune, anything like that, I just want to make sure I'm brushing away, right? You want to C-scoop out of where you're at, because the last thing you want to do is follow the curves of the head and create new lines. So this is going to be a way to make sure, like you probably don't see my C-scoops as accented, but I'm pretty much doing this every single time. They're just small. And usually after a first pass, I kind of go through it again, and then I fine tune a second round. That's usually my final round of retouching the haircut, is making sure that I have all the base in, and then I refine everything else.
Scott loves the wax powder, Sophie.
That's incredible to hear. Wax powder it's so versatile. I think you can use it a lot. And I just love that it's kind of like not scented. So for a lot of people who don't want a scent, and maybe they like to wear I don't know, certain scents that maybe they want to have that more as a focus point, wax powder is great for that. And you get a little bit more shine than you would than a spray powder. Which is another great thing about Statement, is that you have that variety. You have pretty much the whole range of going from super dry all the way to a high shine, depending on what look you're going for. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little tune-up right here along the edge. One of my favorite parts is framing all of the edges of the haircut, because that really is going to accent the rest of the cut. It's going to accent their side profile, their front profile, everything that is important that you see when you're looking at someone. So making sure you get a nice, clean finish. I keep everything pretty close to the natural. I'm not huge on doing really heavy lines unless they specifically ask for it, and that's something that you definitely want to ask before you do it. And I keep it pretty close to the natural, because you gotta think about that regrowth. If you push it too far back, and if that does happen, if you push it too far back, you just gotta let them know, is this something you're going to upkeep once a week? Because if it is a once a week thing, you can go in a little tighter depending on where that natural line hits. Because sometimes it is uneven and you're trying to even out through these haircuts, so that's totally necessary to do, as long as I think that they know what they're getting. And I always kind of try to tell people in advance what it's gonna look like. Are they gonna get a cut next week? Are they gonna get a cut in a month? Because that'll kind of really shift how that hair goes back in. One more little finishing thing I'd like to do is when you are working in those areas where they're like the hardest to blend, because you're going from that short to long, I finish off with some blending shears. And it's just slight. I never want to do too much, but I also am not trying to create more holes in the haircut. So this is just to soften those ends.
Sophie, we've got another question coming in from Ed. He says, hey, Sophie.
Hey, Ed.
Powders are not typical go-to for men. How do you intro to a male guest?
Just like anybody. I mean, it's uncomfortable, I think, at first. Wait, what's the question?
How do you introduce male clients to powders?
Powders. Okay, for those, I think showing people images always helps because I think it's hard to imagine if it's something they've never experienced. So I try to paint a picture if it's through visuals or it's through a touch. So I'll just say, for example, I'll just say, hey, there's this new product. It actually really helps because of the style that you actually like, which is a lot more loose, kind of that kind of style. Or they have like really thin hair, spray powder works really great because it helps thicken that hair. That's also a really, that would probably be my most highlighted detail when it comes to those type of clients with that kind of hair. But I would show them what it feels like so they actually understand it. So I'll spray a little bit in the front and I'll be like, run your hand through your hair real quick and they can actually feel that difference and then it helps them kind of understand the product. Because even if you use a little bit, I think it's enough to show them what it is versus like, just talking about it. So paint that picture, I think it really helps push a new idea into somebody that has never seen or maybe used it before.
That's perfect. And then Emily, she began using the grooming spray before haircuts and loved that she didn't have to use any products after the haircut. She went straight from the grooming spray into blow drying styling and it held nicely.
Mm-hmm. Love that. That is also great. And it kind of dries, not super hard either. It's still pretty soft, which is really nice. I even know people that use grooming spray as a body spray. So that's to give you guys an idea of how great it smells. Okay, so let's add a little bit of the spray powder like I had mentioned. So you guys can see now this detail. If you look at it from the front, which I was talking about sooner, is you want to look at it really great from different angles because then you can see that blend and how it sits. So you guys can see this is kind of on the lower half, just kind of finishing up right over the natural edges of the cut. Accents, keeps everything nice and round to accent the faux shape. Okay, so now we got the spray powder that we'll be adding. So it'll come in this nice little packaging. And once you pop this open, you'll find this logo tint. I'm sure you guys have seen. All right, so we're gonna spray a little bit of this in the front. Anywhere where I want it lift, this is probably where I would use it. So say, for example, this was gonna be more of your effortless styling. You kind of just want it to look like bedhead almost. You can also stop here and be done with it. And what I really like to use it for is even in this back area here. What I love about Faux is this extra length right here on the back. But having just a little bit of this in there, you can run that all the way in. It's super dry. It doesn't even look like there's product in it. But just, even just there, it just sits really nice and natural, which I also love. It just kind of looks. Do you prefer something more clean?
I'm good.
You're good, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, just double checking. It's making this like a hawk. It's been years. Thanks, Dad. Crazy. Okay, so now we're gonna finish this up because I want to show you guys the cocktailing of all the products. So again, we're just gonna open this up. We have our own little caps with our logo in here, so you guys know exactly which one you're using, but also making sure that everything is freshly sealed when you guys buy any of the products. It's really important detail to have that freshness anytime somebody purchases. So, you know, that's part of the experience of what you're getting when you are investing into statement grooming, is that you're gonna have top-notch products with great performance, with great ability to cocktail, and just a full range of dry to shiny looks. One of the things you'll notice is the smell, for sure. So let me pop this open really quick. See that nice little sparkle gold right there? We're going to go down to this. So we already have wax powder in the base. Right. Is this your first time smelling it?
I've smelled Julius's.
Matte shampoo?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was really great.
I love that coconut.
Smells really good. They're all like super neutral.
Mm-hmm. Like it's not clashing.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Get a little part of it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sophie, I love the shine that you're getting on that. It's really, really magnificent. I love it. So that's a fiber pomade.
Mm-hmm. And what's really gonna be great is that as this product dries, and knowing that fiber pomade is more of a stronger product, so you always expect kind of like a high gloss. This is actually going to dry pretty natural shine, so it almost looks like it's just like a water shine. Like when you just put water in here, you comb it back, that's kind of the look that you're gonna get from it. and it doesn't harden, so you can also reactivate. After a long day of work or something that you had to do, is that you can add a little bit of water and reshape and have it the way that you need to fix it. Yeah, that's how.
Emily says her favorite products is Sophie's spray powder. Can't get enough of the scent, and I love that my hair can stay well styled all day, but can still move it flexibly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally yes. Also, as strong as this is and all of our products, it's really easy to wash out. You will not need dish soap to get anything out. It all comes out pretty nicely with water and shampoo. Best to use are Statement Grooming shampoo and conditioner. They work really well because especially when you are going to style and you want to have a nice clean canvas to work with, so you're going to be able to clarify any kind of dirt or just natural debris that you would catch in your hair through a regular day. And then with this little tail back here, kind of play around with it and do some different things with it. Do you like it wild or does it just sit straight?
I feel like it's like starting to get like a curl to the
Mhm.
length, you know? So
Kind of cool.
kind of like whatever.
Like wavy.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Any last questions, you guys? Please make sure to ask right before we wrap up. So let me run through the products that we used again today. We used our shampoo to set the hair and wash and prep, conditioner, the beard oil because we wanted to help smooth out the blonde hair. Went into the grooming spray to just kind of put a little bit in before we blow dry it. Use some spray powder as the base. And last but not least, we finished off with the fiber pomade to give you that nice, clean, slick overall look.
Ed has a question for you, Sophie. What advice would you give a barber or stylist who doesn't feel comfortable retailing?
Like talk to people on how to sell products.
Yeah, how do
I think selling products is a hard skill to learn. I think it was one of the things that I struggled with too, because it was just like, I was barely learning how to cut hair, so I just felt like throwing in like, hey, you want to buy this shampoo? And I would stop there. I think the more you get comfortable with using it and seeing the pros of what you like about it, and I also like to pay attention to like client reactions and asking them how they feel about it. I think if you also help to get to know them and what they've gone through, what they experienced, what they have struggles with, you can find a product that works for them. And as you maybe give advice to them on what you know has worked for other people in a similar situation, I think that's a more casual conversation to have to then say, hey, I know you're struggling with this. Let me help you solve this problem by giving you this. This will help with what you're dealing with. And that's probably the easier way of selling the product, is knowing what things are good for. And so when those situations happen, you kind of know where to guide those questions.
That's perfect. So Sophie, let's do a giveaway. You've got a box behind you. That is our Statement Try Me kit, and we're available at tell everybody where we're available.
Okay, you guys, let me see, make sure this is in frame.
Yeah.
All right, we are available at a lot of places. And if you guys would love to try any of our products out, please make sure to check out Cosmoprof, Amco, Life of Riley, Beautycraft, Paramount. This is the Try Me kit.
It includes the shampoo, the hair and body. It includes the shampoo, the hair and body cleansing bar, the grooming spray, the wax powder, the shine paste, and you can contact your local distributor for more information. But we'll give away 3.
We're giving away 3.
We're gonna give away 3. If you just email us at contact us at Statement Grooming, first 3 people to email us, and we'll go ahead and send it out to you.
Nice.
And then we've got some upcoming
Classes that you guys need to make sure you tune in for. If you enjoyed this class and Julie's class, the one before that, please make sure to get into our other classes coming up, and that is Julius on May 3rd. I'll be back on June 6th, and Julius again on July 12th.
Perfect.
And make sure to stay connected with us through Statement Grooming on social media. You can find all of us on there, me, Julius, and Miguel. We love seeing all your guys' content. We're constantly posting everyone's work, so please continue to share everything that you guys are doing with all of your Statement Grooming products. We can't wait to see.
Yeah, don't forget to tag us at Statement Grooming and use the hashtag #MakeYourStatement for a chance to be featured. Thank you, Sofie, so much. Excellent job as always. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We'll see you soon. Can we get a spin of the model?
Oh, of course. How could I forget? All right, ready? Here we go. See that little disconnect tail that I was talking about earlier? Super cool. I love the contrast with the blonde hair too. I feel like it always makes haircuts get a little more depth, especially for fades. There's so much you can do because once that blonde hair goes out, you can revamp it into another completely different look, which is also great. So any of my colored clients, I tell them the same thing. There's always like that transitional haircut, which is kind of similar to this, where you have that two-tone look. I think it accents really well on the fade. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. This live, I believe, will be available on our YouTube channel. So tune in, ask questions in the comments, all of that. I try to go back and get answer any of those questions as well. So thank you guys for tuning in today.